Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another MCO show. So, what's this show about? Well, it's been volume 43. If you don't know anything about it, please, better late than never. So yeah, this is a show where we talk about everything about music. So, well, today we have a very special guest, which you've seen on the last live stream. But before we do that, before we dive into this topic where we talk about strings from thinner strings like bihun to thicker strings like spaghetti, we gonna have some announcements. So let's start. So like someone give me this paper, sir. They pay me to talk about this. So yeah, let's start off with the brand new Korg Nautilus, which is a new workstation by Korg, and it's already available at KL and Ipoh. So come try it out. So what's the price? You're wondering. 61 keys for 8,545 ringgit, 73 keys for 10,235 ringgit, and 88 keys for 11,570 ringgit. What a bargain! So, if you don't know what a Nautilus is, check out this video. Wow, what an amazing workstation. So, for any guitarists out there, we also gonna make you fly like a G6. So, Zoom released a new effects pedal. It's called the G6, which is the little brother of G11, and it starts at 1,795 ringgit, and it's already available to test out at KL. So, what is a G6? Come check it out. with that. So this is something, the last one, something affordable. Finally, it will be the Samson Q9U XLR USB dynamic broadcast mic starting at 870 ringgit. So this is a new broadcast mic released by Samson. If you're wondering what it is, check out this video. Well, there's a Q9U. So, now what have you been waiting for? With this out of the way, and now you are waiting for the special guest, right? The host doesn't matter. So yeah, now everyone, he came to the stream last stream, talk about acoustic guitar, and yeah, please welcome the self-proclaimed long hair guitarist Ben.
Yo! What's up, guys?
Hello, Ben.
Yo, what's up, man?
Thanks for joining the show.
As
Welcome
always. Back. Thank you.
Well, great to have you back here. So,
Yep.
really nice to have you back because last stream you talked about the acoustic guitar, which I think it helped a lot of people and very informative. So, what are we going to talk about today? Spaghettis? Noodles?
The more metallic type of them. So yeah.
More metallic type. Is it edible?
Nope.
Not edible. Okay.
Hey,
Yo,
okay.
guys. Oh, comments.
We have comments.
Great.
Yeah.
Hello.
All right. So thanks, guys, for all of you who are tuning in. My name is Ben, and I'm a product advisor
Yep,
at CK
and
Music.
also a self-proclaimed long hair rocker.
Pretty much. I think that would be quite accurate of me.
Yeah.
And thanks, guys, for all of you who are tuning in. If you have any questions, please do throw at us.
Yeah, please.
And a shout out to our live streams. Don't forget to like, share, and also subscribe. Yeah.
Information will be here if you want to visit the website.
So today we are going to be talking about some really interesting topics. So
yeah, you've been stuffed something in my pocket once again.
yes, this would be what you'll be wanting.
So you're gonna talk about this?
Sorry,
metallic?
not this. Yeah, something else.
Not this.
Yeah.
Whoa,
Okay,
what
there we
have
go.
you bring here?
We have Azam. Aduh, tak ada Enter Sandman hari ni.
Well, the intro.
Was. So yeah, talking about this, when it comes to our topic for today,
Yep.
as you can see, my hands are full of electric guitar strings.
So electric guitars, not noodles, huh?
Not noodles.
Oh,
sorry.
bummer.
What is the deal with electric guitar strings? All right. So today we're actually going to talk about a lot of the myths and also things like how to choose a proper guitar string for yourself based on your type of playing and things like that. So yeah.
So right off the bat, I have one quick question.
Yep.
Isn't strings all the same?
No.
Except for gauges?
Yes, that is what makes the difference in strings, all right? When you're talking is, number one, the gauges, of course, as you mentioned. But number two would also be things like the coating. Like these are coated, the GHS coated boomers, what we have with us, all the GHS. And these are actually quite long lasting. They're coated in order for you to be able to kind of like last longer, withstand rusting. It's not that it won't rust, but it takes longer. And plus, if you use things like, example, your Music Nomads, String Fuel, or the GHS Fast Fret, things like that, these guys will last way longer.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
So, is it a rocket science like while choosing the strings?
No, actually it's not. It's pretty simple, which is what we're covering today. And
Okay.
one of the things that is really interesting about it is a lot of guitarists come in to buy electric guitar strings. They say, I want electric guitar strings. So then we ask them, okay, what type of string do you want? And they're like, string biasa lah.
String biasa.
So what is a
String.
normal string,
Yeah.
right? And that actually has to do with a lot of the topics of
Today?
today, and what type of string is suitable for the type of guitar that you play, the type of music that you play, and things like that.
Well, the packaging is interesting. I
Yep.
might just go for the packaging itself.
Yeah. And just a shout out. First of all, the GHS boomers. They're called boomers for a reason.
Okay, Boomer.
So what you look at here, this will be the GHS boomers, and these guys are actually a very affordable set of strings, and they give a very, very high output. The amount of output that you get from this compared to other
High
strings.
Well, you mean high output? Well, so will it get shock on this?
No,
So
no,
it's
no,
an
no, no,
electric
no,
conductor
no, no,
or-
no. What I mean by high output is when you talk about the pickups on
Okay.
your electric guitar, which are magnetic pickups, these strings actually help to cut the magnetic field much better. We'll go a bit more into that
Alright.
later. So if y'all want to know why it's called boomers, it's because they
It's
can
old.
really boom. They are loud. They can get.
Oh,
they have a
loud.
high output
Okay,
strings.
I thought they were old. So it's a Gen Boomers.
So yeah.
So that's I'm always curious because I'm not a musician. I'm just a host, and guitar strings with different prices. They
Yep.
have different gauges, and as well as you say, different packaging or something. No, different coated material.
Coatings. Yes.
Yeah. Does
So-
that also affect the sound?
Yes. So for example,
Mm-hmm.
this one, the GHS nickel rockers. So this is a nickel coated strings, and having a nickel coating on your strings actually gives a much more heavier mid and brighter sound.
Mid and brighter sound. So it's
Yeah.
a nickel coating.
Yes.
And is it endorsed by Nickelback?
No.
It's not endorsed by Nickelback. Well,
So yeah, this specifically if you're playing, trying to play rock music and things like that, right? This would actually be really nice because it gives you a really good mid end of your guitar, especially for your leads, for your heavy chugging and all, for your classic rock sounds. You want to get that heavy mid sounds. This string actually makes the difference.
so
Ah,
it does
in fact,
make a difference.
this is the string that I use on my own guitar.
Uh-huh. I get it. But it makes a difference on the coating itself. But is it the most essential or the string size?
All right, when we talk about that, string size definitely makes also a difference.
Okay.
Okay, so when you're talking about string size, you're talking about the gauges, and when you talk about the gauge, you've got everything from your 008, which is your one of the smaller ones we have. There are others which have much smaller size, which go up to 7, 7.5 and all. But it starts at 8 and goes all the way up to 10.
10.
Some go even 11 and higher.
Okay.
Yes. So when we are talking about the specific strings, right, I think it is best to talk about your type of guitar also.
Type of guitar.
yeah.
So should we go to that?
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So first thing that we want to talk about is when you have your guitar, right? Choosing a string. Why is it important to know what type of guitar you have? And that has to do with a scale length. So when you're talking about scale length of your guitar, right? You have from your bridge, where your bridge is, right up to where the nut is. So every guitar has a different scale length, right? Let's show the next picture so that we can explain this a bit more. All right, so here we have 4 different generic guitars, which a lot of people in the market have. And you're talking starting from the Fender Jaguar, then you have the Les Paul, you have the Fender Stratocasters over there, and then you have the Ibanez RGs, right? So what are the difference between them? It's best to explain it this way. As you can see, the bridges are aligned properly, but look at where the string, the nut, the zero, or what they call the zero fret, right? Those places actually start. You see, it goes further and further back.
Okay.
Right? So, for example, the Fender Jaguar has a 24-inch scale length.
Just to mention, the Fender Jaguar you mentioned is on the first one?
On the first one, yes.
Oh, okay.
Right? The first one on top is the Fender Jaguar. It has a 24-inch scale length. Then you have the Gibson Les Paul, which is a 24.75-inch scale length. Then you come to the famous Fender Stratocaster designs, Telecasters or Jazz Masters. This body shape itself, okay, these are 25.5-inch. They're already considered what we call long scales.
Oh, so from the third one, it's starting is a long
Already
scale.
what you consider a long scale. Then you go to something like the Ibanez RG. Okay,
RGs.
those are 24 frets, but the scale length of it is a 27-inch scale length. You can get up
So
to
it's a
27
super-
inch.
Up to 27
Up to 27-inch
Okay.
scale length. So you're talking about a super long neck on it. Now, where does this come important? Because if you have a shorter scale length, like example the Fender Jaguar, all right, if you put too small a string on it, the strings will end up becoming flexing.
Okay.
Yeah, they
Like,
don't have enough tension on the strings.
So if a short scale and you put a thinner strings, you mean?
Yeah, something like, if you let's say put a 9 gauge on something like a Fender Jaguar,
Okay.
if you end up having a heavy picking in your hand, you start picking it heavily, the fluctuation of the string going up and down, all right, is going to affect the tone of the guitar.
Okay.
So, when the string flexes down, it's going to stretch. So
Yeah.
the pitch is going to go up. Then it goes back to normal and then flexes up the other direction and it's going to go up
Go-
again. So your
Uh-huh.
pitching is always going to start fluctuating.
Fluctuating.
Ah.
Do you have any more simple words than fluctuating?
Simple words is basically your pitch will be going up and down, up and down, up and down.
So,
lah. Yeah, so
like
when
that.
you twang your string, what it gets is
Yep.
it'll literally go boing.
Okay. So
Bong.
that's to do with the fluctuating.
Yes.
Or going up and down.
So when you have your
Uh-huh.
strings which goes pong, pong, like that, right?
Yep.
That means that your gauge is too small for your picking.
The gauge is too small. That means it's too thin.
Yes. So you want to go on a more heavier picking style. So when you pick heavier, the entire string gauge needs to go higher.
Needs to go
So
high.
something like the Fender Jaguar just now, you
Yep.
want to put a much higher scale strings on it. And giving a good example right here, this is the latest Black Star Carry On guitar. So this is a very short guitar, as you can see, right? A guitar like this actually comes with something like a 12 to 13 gauge string.
Okay.
Why they have to put such heavy strings on this? Because
It's short.
it's short and it end up you don't need to fluctuate so much on your heavy picking. So that is basically your string gauges
So
and your
which
guitar
means
type.
to balance it and to like counter
Yes,
it, right?
that is why it is important to know what type of guitar you're picking. I mean, you have, and then also what type of music you're going to be playing,
What
in order
type
for you to be able to pick the right string for you. Because
Uh-huh.
every string is different. Like I can use a gauge 9 string on something like a Les Paul with a short scale,
Okay.
right?
So-
But if I have a very light picking hand, I won't have a problem.
okay.
The only issue comes when I have a heavy picking, like a guy that plays probably like rock and goes like really heavy, bam, bam, bam on it.
So it's like
Then
picking
you want
is
to
like
go.
soft. So
Yes.
like a soft string, like a thin gauge.
Yes,
Will be alright.
will be okay.
Okay.
So that is basically how it goes on that.
So talk about that. Once again, we have a caller goes by the name of Aiden, and he have a question. Yeah, what's wrong? What's wrong, man?
Hello. I'm a heavy metal player who played drop D. What string would you recommend?
So he's a heavy metal player who played drop D. Good question.
Yes, that's a good question. So, example, if you are a heavy metal player, the first question is, of course, what type of guitar you're going to be playing.
Okay.
All right.
What type
So, like example, let's say he's going to be
Wait,
using.
let me stop you right there one
Yep.
second. So, is there any definition for like a standard guitar? Like maybe if I take a Fender, because a lot of people use
Yes.
Fender.
Yes.
So, is there anything like a standard guitar, like more majority use?
Okay, majority of the guitars out there,
Yep.
right? They are actually a copy design of the Fender Stratocasters or the
Okay.
Telecasters.
So
those
it's
are
a
the
long
general,
scale.
or the Les Pauls. These are the
Okay.
three famous ones, and then of course you've got the RGs which go a bit longer lah.
So it's long and short.
Yes,
like the
that's
Les Pauls
basically it lah. You are
Okay.
either you're a long scale or a short scale,
Okay.
right? So if he's a heavy metal player, I'm guessing he uses something like probably a Ibanez guitar, which is a
Okay.
long scale guitar.
Yeah, that's extra long.
Yes.
Okay.
So if he's using something with a long scale and he wants to go drop D, right? So heavy metal players have a very heavy hand. So
they-
I would
you mean they
recommend
pick
him
very
yes,
aggressively.
Very aggressively.
Okay.
I would actually recommend him something like a gauge 10.
A gauge 10.
Yeah, a gauge 10.
Can you show it to the camera?
As you can see here,
So this is a gauge
the
10.
gauge 10, something
Okay.
like this, because it would have a much heavier tone, but you are able to drop the D on it, and you will be really comfortable with it.
Okay.
But you could go higher,
Yeah,
depending
so
on
he
how
can go
much.
higher.
He can go
like
higher.
11 and 12.
11 or 12.
So minimum will be a gauge 10.
Minimum would be a gauge 10 is what I would
Okay.
recommend for our caller just now.
Okay.
Adrian, was that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 second. I also wanted to ask, like, when we are in the backstage, like discussing a little bit about it,
Mhm.
I saw something like, okay, there's a gauge 10, gauge 9, but there's a different number at the back. So it's like a 42, 46. Like,
Mhm.
what does that mean?
Okay, wait. Before that, we have
Yeah.
a question
Oh,
from Aaron Mas Jr., right?
okay.
Hi Ben,
Ben.
what string will suggest for basses? Okay, that's a little away from our topic, but
Okay.
talking about bass strings is also similar to what we have, right? So if you look at your bass strings, there is already written there specifically long gauge, long scale, or a medium scale
Okay.
bass guitar, all right? So if you are going for a medium scale bass guitar, then you could probably go for something lighter. It's fun to play, especially when you're going to go slapping and all these things. Or you can go even longer,
Longest.
like longer scale bass guitars.
Okay.
You want to go a much heavier string also can.
Heavy. So it's like a thicker strings.
Thicker strings
Yeah,
also
okay.
can.
Okay.
But the problem with that would be you will have to set up your entire guitar to fit that.
Uh-huh.
Go for lightest gauges if you want to compensate for it.
Okay, so if I want to
Ah.
go thicker strings, I need to have an extra step. What do you call that?
Set up.
Set up.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the answer to that would be our guitars are made out of wood.
Yes,
Right? So when
yes.
you have the string tension on it, it's going to pull the neck forward. It's going to bend
okay.
it forward. The higher the tension is going to bend further in front, the lower the tension is going to bend further to the back.
Alright.
So that is why once your guitar is set to a certain gauge, set of strings, right? You want to stick to that gauge.
Stick to the gauge.
Ah.
So if I set to like a gauge 10, imagine it's an electric guitar.
Yep.
I set to a gauge 10.
Mhm.
If I want to go for 11 or 12 or 9 like that, I
Mhm.
need to do the setup.
Yes, you need to do a setup on your guitar
Aha.
because it's more obvious on guitars that have a floating bridge.
Floating bridge.
If you have a fixed bridge, it's still very obvious. When you go from something like a gauge 9 and you jump straight to something like a gauge 11, yes, your string action will immediately go up, your intonation will go off. So you'll need to set up all these things to fit for that gauge of string. But once you've set it up for that and you go back to something lighter, you'll end up getting problems of your string buzzing
Okay.
because your strings are now too low because the neck has pulled backwards now, and your strings will end up buzzing. And when your strings end up buzzing,
It's not going to sound
it's
good.
not going to sound
obviously.
good. Yeah, right. So you'll have to set it up again.
Okay.
So it is best, as what they say, find a gauge that you're comfortable with
Okay.
and maintain to that.
Maintain to that. So can you give it a little conclusion for Mr. Aaron?
All right. So for Mr. Aaron, for you, I guess one of the things I would suggest is go for what we call medium gauge strings, not too heavy, because that would actually require you to do a lot of setups.
Okay. So just to be safe.
Just to
not
be safe,
do
go
some-
at the medium gauge strings. So yeah.
Yeah, hope that helped you out, Mr. Aaron. Please give a like as a thank you for Mr. Ben right here.
Yeah, thank you.
So where were we? Yeah, about the drop D. So
Yes.
if he uses like as you assume he used like a heavy guitar,
Yes.
like a long scale, like a
Mhm.
Ibanez, you mean?
Yeah.
So you need to go off the thicker strings.
Yes, he might need to go thicker strings, but he doesn't need to go too thick either.
Oh, okay. So like a 10, 11.
Yeah,
somewhere
that should
here.
be good enough.
Okay.
Because he already has a long scale guitar.
Oh, okay.
If he has what we call a medium scales or the normal scales like our Fender style guitars or even Craftmans that we have here in our shop, the Craftmans STs and TLs, those are what we call they are not as long as Ibanez scales.
Okay.
So with those, if you want to start playing drop D and all, a gauge 9 would start getting floppy. That means you'll start fluctuating. But you could go to something like a gauge 10.
Oh, okay.
Also, that would be really suitable for that.
So if you drop D, it will be on floppy. So they are. You mean it's like very hard to play because it's so loose, so you can't pick it.
It won't be.
Something like
It's
that?
not about hard to play.
Okay.
I can actually demonstrate it here on this guitar. So when I have this guitar with me, and right now I'll just put it up to the mic so that you can hear. Alright. Can hear that?
Yeah, a little.
Can hear that, right? Alright. So if I drop D on this, see that? Can hear that start buzzing.
So, yeah.
Brrr, yeah.
Yep.
So that is what we call fluctuating on the strings.
Okay.
So when you get that problem, you know that you need to go up on your gauge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's basically the part on picking your string gauges based on the type of music you play, the type of tuning you use, the type of guitar you use.
Okay. So, we have another question already.
All right.
So let's.
And this is?
He goes by the name Playability. Oh, he's. I think he's anonymous. So anonymous caller.
All
So
right.
See what's up he got.
Hello, I have a question. Someone asked me that will changing the string gauges affect the playability?
Oh, I think he heard. He says that his son asked him that will changing the string gauges affect the playability?
Okay. So changing your string gauge is directly proportional to how you play the guitar. It is going to be there, right? When I mean that, is very simple. A lighter gauge string is easier to press.
All right.
Right,
okay.
so you don't need to use too much force to press the string. A heavier gauge string will be a bit more harder on the fingers. All right, so your playability will differ on that. But let's say you are playing leads, so you want to bend the strings a lot, and then you go and get yourself a heavy set of strings, right? Your bending is not going to be easy to bend your strings.
Because it's too thick.
It's too thick.
Just
Exactly.
a fact, just a quick one. Is the Ben mentioned that harder the strings, which means is thicker the strings.
Thicker the strings,
and
yeah.
the softer the strings means thinner the strings.
Obviously,
So,
So a smaller gauge will be a lot more softer to press,
Okay.
and a heavier gauge or thicker gauge would be a bit harder to press, lah.
So just a little bit of sidetrack. So like depends on what's the string that you want to play. Like you say, it means leads, right?
Yep.
Also like the setup, like the setting of the guitar also give a very different like a
Yes,
playability.
the
right?
playability.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's a
that
little bit
is
of
why.
sidetrack, but yeah.
That is why when you mentioned about this, so remember earlier we also talked a bit about this. When you do change your different gauge of strings, that means, for example, your guitar comes standard with a 9 and then you go to a 10, right? It is going to affect the playability of the guitar because, again, from a gauge 9 to a gauge 10, you have much heavier tension. There's more stress, there's pulling on the strings.
Okay,
There's
yep,
pulling
yep.
against your neck, and thus is going to bring your whole neck forward.
Okay,
When
yeah.
it brings it forward, your strings are going to get higher.
Yeah,
When the
so
strings get
it's
higher,
and it's very hard to press.
It'll be end up you have to press much further distance lah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that would definitely affect. Or let's say you already set up a guitar for gauge 10 and suddenly you go to something that's a gauge, maybe a gauge 8.
So it lose the tension already.
The tension becomes looser,
Yeah.
then the whole string goes
So
backwards,
touching-
and then there'll be other touching on it. So then your playability will be affected again.
Okay.
So yes, changing your guitar gauge or strings, jumping either going up or down, is going to affect your playability.
Okay.
And
so-
because of that, it is very important to always maintain the same gauge that you have always been playing. If you feel that you want to go up in your gauge, take the gauge that you want and send it to us at CK Music example to do a setup. So we will set up your guitar to fit that gauge of strings for your playability.
So better keep that in mind.
Yep.
So like when you say when I really want to change the gauge of the strings, you mean like you really need to commit to it.
Yes.
So don't always try this, try that. Like
Yes,
if I'm
exactly.
using 9, I change my mind. Like I'm playing like classical rock, something like that. I change my mind. I want to do like drop D, C sharp. So I want to try like gauge 11. So I need to bring it to do the setup and really commit to it, not to like after a week I want to change it. Like if I know how to change the string, I don't know how to do setup. If I change it to gauge 9 again, so it will affect the guitar.
It will affect, yes.
So
because
please keep
electric
that in
guitars are
mind.
very sensitive in that, actually.
Oh,
And
okay.
again, mentioning floating bridges, like example, your Floyd Rose bridge, example, it'll be very obvious, especially when you change the gauge of strings, when you go higher or lower, the bridge will actually pull up or go down.
Oh, okay.
So rather than it being flat, it'll actually end up going up or down.
And that will affect the playability of
Yes, definitely.
it. Okay.
Your
Alright.
intonation all will move. So that is why, again, I can't stress it enough for guitarists out there. If you guys are really going to be changing your gauge of strings, right? Pick a gauge that you are comfortable with and stick to that. Okay? Because by running around the different gauge of strings without setting up your guitar is going to cause not just a difficult playability for you, it's also going to affect your tone. Because with the buzzing and all, or with the higher gauge of strings, it's going to affect your specific guitar itself, right? So keep that in mind, yeah.
And that's a fact from Ben, the long hair rocker. Okay, so I never know about that.
Yep.
Like even you can change the playability. Oh, talk
Yes.
about that. We have a caller go by the name of Brandon. Let's see what you have.
Hello. So I want to ask you guys, is there like a tone differences in between the different gauges of strings or not? Because I'm actually quite confused about this.
So is there a tone difference between different gauges of string?
Okay, yes, there is going to be a tone difference. And this is going to get a little technical because I have to explain. When you talk about the gauge of strings, you're talking about a wire, okay? How thick the wire, whether it's going to be a thin wire or is it going to be a thick wire, right? So that is your string gauge.
Okay. So one second, I have a bit curious something, right? So it's the tone difference, which means is it the sound difference or like the tuning, like the difference of that? Like what's the meaning, like the tone difference? Like does it get louder? Does it get more bassy?
Yes, okay. But before that,
Okay,
Let's-
there's a question from Mr. Stanley also.
yes.
Do
Do you guys carry the strings recommended by Gibson for their Les Paul? That is the 9 to 46. In fact, I actually have it right here with me. So, Mr. Stanley, this would be our gauge 9 to 46 that you are asking. Yes, the common set that is available will be a 9 to 42, whereas 10 to 46. Gauge 9 to 46 is something we call a mixed gauge. Now, this is really recommended for Les Paul, as
So it's
Mr. Stanley over there.
a short scale guitar.
Yes, a short scale guitar, but the guitar is not so short a scale as the Fender Jaguar.
So it's right in between.
Yes.
Okay.
So you want a string that is right in between. So yes, a 9 to 46. In fact, I have it right with me. We do carry it, and this is definitely something that is really recommended for Les Paul style guitars.
9 to 46, which
Yeah.
means the thinness is the 9.
Thinness is a 9, whereas the topmost, the E
Will
will
go
be
a
a
bit
heaviest one,
thicker.
will be a 46, which is what you normally get with a gauge 10 set of strings.
Oh, so what's the
Ah.
standard for the gauge 9 strings?
9 to 42.
9 to 42. So
Yes.
10 will be 10 to 46.
6.
That's why this is like a mixed bag.
This is a mix, kind of like a mix of it.
Yeah.
The reason why this is special is because we have it. So yeah.
Uh-huh. And you said the Les Paul guitar is like in between, not too long, not too short.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Gotcha.
Kevin,
Oh,
yes,
Mr. Kevin.
bass strings, GHS boomers, correct.
strings.
Even the bass strings are called the GHS boomers because, again, it has very high output. that actually helps a lot when you're playing your bass because you want to have more low ends. Yeah, so that is why it is. Thanks for the comment on the
Yeah,
GHS Boomers.
Thank you.
Please.
Now,
So
back
yeah, by the way,
to
Mr. Stanley,
Oh, yeah.
I hope that answers your question. So if you really want a set of strings from us, come find us, and we do have the 9 to 46 available. Right? So
Please
yeah,
give a like for him as a thank you.
yeah.
And back to
Back to the topic
just now,
of
the tone difference.
tone
Yeah.
difference. Okay,
So you're gonna get real technical.
it's
on
going to
this.
get a little technical,
Please
right?
use some normal words. Not
Okay,
As
it's
not,
best-
I'm not a guitarist, so like I'm afraid. Yeah, people watching probably is like our audience probably.
but
if someone
I'm going
new,
to give it.
you
I'm
know.
going to give it in a very easy layman's terms,
Alright.
and I have a diagram. Right.
Oh, okay, cool.
Show them the diagram. All right. So what you see over here, all right, you see the string that's fluctuating over there. Then you have your pickup, your North Pole, South Pole. This would be your guitar's pickup, your magnetic pickup on your guitar.
Okay.
So as the string fluctuates in that, it's going to cut the magnetic field of the pickup, and that is how the signal is given to the amplifier.
Oh,
Alright.
So that's how the pickup works.
Yes, that's basically how the pickup works and
I-
how it senses the string. It's
Oh.
not a mic, it is actually a magnetic pickup.
So they are not just vibrating, collecting the vibrating sound and
No, no, no,
amplify
no,
it.
no, 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 no. It's
Oh.
not collecting the vibration of it. It is actually
Okay.
collecting the fluctuation of the string.
So
So,
fluctuation.
if you have heavier gauge string, all right?
Mhm. Oh, before that, we have a question from Mr. Kevin.
Yes.
Are there any stainless steel strings for GSS Boomer?
All right. So for GHS boomers, there is not specifically a stainless steel strings because even this are actually, if you read on the specs, it's actually nickel coated also.
Nickelback.
Yeah. Right. These are nickel coated. These are pure nickel strings.
Oh,
Ah,
okay,
that is
okay.
where the difference come in.
And this
We do
is-
not have steel strings.
well, that's going to be quite a nightmare for steel strings. Like,
Yes.
it's 2 weeks and it will rust.
It'll end up rusting quickly.
Mhm.
Yes. All right. So I hope that answers your question.
Right.
Thanks for the graphics. Yes, because that's the best way for us to explain this string gauges, right? So let's put up the graphics again.
So, as a rapper, it's not a speaker, it's a magnet.
It's a magnet.
Okay.
So what is going to happen now is, let's say you have a thicker string, all right? Having a thicker string means that the string is not going to fluctuate as much,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So you have your magnetic pole here, and it's just going to vibrate here. All right, let's say it's going to vibrate just a little bit like this.
Okay.
Then you end up going for a much lighter gauge string, and it's going to fluctuate
Vibrate
more,
faster. Okay.
right? So as it fluctuates, how say the word fluctuate, all right?
Alright.
That means it goes up and down. As it fluctuates more, what's going to happen is it's going to create more signal.
Okay.
The
yeah,
cut
yeah.
up and down of it is going to be a lot more.
So it's more equal. It
Yes.
sends the signals.
So
more.
that itself, in that vibration, that slight tonal difference that you're going to hear is going to be obvious. It's not that the sound is going to be thinner. It's actually going to give you a much more diverse dynamics in that playing.
okay.
But you also have to take in consideration that a thinner strings means there's less metal in there to cut the cut the magnetic
right.
fields.
Even though they may have
Vibrating
they are
more, but there's
so
less
there's
metal
less
there.
cut. So if it's thicker, it cuts more.
It cuts more also, right? So that part will balance out. The difference would be how long the string maintains its vibrating. That means
so
how
it's
long
keep-
the string is going to sustain its vibration before it stops fluctuating up and down.
Okay.
And that is where the importance comes in.
Oh. Okay.
So, for example, a lighter gauge string will take a much longer time to stop.
yeah, because they fluctuate.
Yes,
a
and
lot.
there's less tension on it,
fast.
so
Okay.
it'll still can vibrate, then slowly come to a stop. Then when you have a thicker gauge string, it's going to vibrate and stop faster
Yeah,
because,
because-
there's a higher tension on it.
Yeah, I have that. So they are pulling it.
Pulling
so
harder,
can
so it just vibrates and stops. Vibrate,
So,
stops.
Like your lighter is a little loose.
Yes, so it can
will
continue-
go forever.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, correct.
Takes
It
longer
becomes
to
like a
solve.
pendulum effect on it. And
yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah.
the difference in the tonality that's going to get on your guitar when you change your gauge of strings.
So what the tonality will change, like thicker strings? Like even if they vibrate more, does it, you mean like it sustain more, like the sound will like longer?
Yes, correct. Because again, your pickup is picking up how much when the string moves, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So when the string moves and it cuts the magnetic field, as long as the string is moving, that means there is signal being generated.
Oh, yeah. So when it stops, no signal.
When it stops, there's no signal.
Ah.
So if your string stops faster, it means that your tone is going to cut faster.
Oh, okay. So it's not like the fact that it changes, it add more.
It's not that it's
bass
going to
or
add
that-
more bass or add more
Highs
highs,
like
or something like that.
Oh, so it just mean like how long will it sustain?
Yes,
So-
correct. How long is going to sustain?
Mhm.
And also the depth of the tone. Because
depth.
again, the thickness of the string, remember I told you, the thickness of the string is going to cut more
more,
or cut
yeah,
less.
yeah.
So that part of it is going to change. How far the string moves away from the magnetic field before it cuts back again, that's going to affect the tone also.
Okay. So let's imagine someone like is a lead player.
Mm-hmm.
So do they need more sustain or less sustain?
Generally, if you're a lead player, you're going to play leads, you want your guitar to sustain longer.
Oh,
And
okay.
also, you want something that's easy to bend, easy
Yeah,
to press,
easy
because
to
you want to
press.
play faster also.
Yeah.
So in that gauge, I would choose something lighter. Maybe I might even go up to gauge 8.
Oh yeah. So but like so they can bend the string.
Yes, so I can bend the strings. It's easier for me to go faster things if I play tapping and things like that. But if I'm going to be playing rhythm, where
Rhythm,
I'm
like
mostly of
strumming.
all my chords, bars,
Yeah. Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that, metal riffs and all, then I'll go for something heavier because I won't be playing a lot of leads. I'm not going to be bending the string much. I'm just going to be playing on the heavy.
So yeah, like strumming, so it won't sustain. And
I don't need it to, because my
if not, it
picking
will
is
be
already
very
doing it.
jumbled up. So
Yes.
you can just strum and like maybe you can palm it.
palm
Comes
it and all
like
those
that.
things. Yeah, those comes into play on that.
So just now when about the tone, it also affects like the way you say playability. Like last question just now.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that would be that one.
Okay. Well, talk about that. We have another caller.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give it a listen. Hello, what's your problem?
Hello. I'm actually wondering, will thinner string easily snap?
Oh, okay. Well, this caller have the same question in mind. Will thinner strings easily snap? That's where I kind of freaked out about guitar because the strings can get real thin, like an injection. If you tune it like a long scale guitar,
Mm-hmm.
you mean they have more. You mentioned that it have more stress on it, so
Mhm.
it will give up sooner or later, or while you tuning the strings.
All right.
Is it true?
So this question is actually, I would say, it's a myth. One of the biggest myths that's out there is that your guitar, if you put smaller strings, it's easier to snap.
Yeah.
All right. Why that is a myth is because that actually has to do with your playing style and your guitar itself. If let's say you're playing and you are a very heavy player, right? You pick very heavily, so
yeah.
you're like down, 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 down,
I
like that,
use
right?
like a very thick
And you use
pick
thick
like that.
picks,
Yeah.
right? Of course, the smaller string is going to snap. Why? Because the
Okay.
amount of pressure you're going to give on it, you're going to pull the string, so it's going to yank, yank,
Definitely.
yank, yank.
And give
It's
up.
definitely going to give up.
Yep.
Right?
True.
That is what we call metal fatigue.
Metal fatigue. Yeah.
It is to any metal, as long as you keep bending it, it's going
Yeah.
to snap.
Well, yeah,
It's going to
that's a
break,
fact.
right? That's a
Yep.
fact. And the same thing goes with guitar strings. So if you are a heavy picking guy and you go and put yourself some light strings like gauge 8, gauge 9, it is going to snap in your hand.
Oh.
So you might want to go something heavier.
okay.
But if, let's say, you're a lead player who just holds your guitar pick with just 2 fingers and barely just holding
Like-
it, and you're just a feather touch on your thing, because, like, example, doing shredding.
Oh, yeah.
Shredder guitarists, they sound so fast in their playing,
Yeah, yeah.
is because they are barely picking the string.
So they
they're
are
literally
not, like,
just-
picking like
Yes,
like
they are
that?
actually just literally rubbing the string like this.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
So
Okay.
that kind of playing is literally going to cause the string not to move much. But you get the full tone because you have a nice gauge string. Like example, most probably they use a 9 or a 8.
Okay, because they have the fluctuation and the sustain on that.
Yes, and they have the sustain
can
and all
bend
these.
it.
Yes, and they don't really pick hard. They don't go
Oh.
bang on it. So if that is the issue, like you are a light player and then you end up using probably even a gauge 9, gauge 10, and then it snaps in your hand, then you need to check your guitar.
So wait, what do you mean then? So
Okay,
if you
let's
play
say you already went, you said, okay, I'm using a gauge 8 and it
Yeah.
breaks in my hand. Gauge 9 breaks in my
Breaks.
hand.
Like,
Then
gauge 10
gauge
also
10
break?
also end up breaking in my hand. There's either a problem with your guitar because
Maybe
most
the
probably
set-
the
setup, you mean?
the setup and also the nut over here probably, or maybe even the machine heads, the tuning heads over here, they have become sharp, so they will end up cutting into the strings.
Oh, okay.
So these kind of things are causes for that. Because I use one set of strings and I play on a daily basis at home for my guitars, and my guitar strings can last me about a month, 2 months without snapping. In fact,
Okay.
the guitar strings end up rusting before it
string
snaps.
Oh, alright.
Ah.
Okay.
So, the next part I want to answer about the same thing, right? Do thinner strings snap?
Yeah.
The question is going to be this. If you have less tension on the strings, that means your guitar string is smaller,
yeah.
right? It's easier to bend and all that, right? Does it make sense to say that the guitar will snap?
No.
No,
Yeah,
because
definitely not.
it can bend to your playing,
Yeah.
right?
It's
It's not
designed for
going to,
that.
yes, it's not going to end up snapping
Yeah.
because the tension is right.
Yeah, even you can bend
You can
it.
bend
so
it. You can bend it like wing,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
not going to snap,
Snap,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So it's a good idea to have a smaller gauge string if you don't want it to snap. Actually, it's counterintuitive of what most people actually think.
counting. So yeah.
People
If
say
it's
like,
snap-
"Oh,
yeah, thinner
my guitar string
will
snaps
snap.
faster, so
Yeah.
I need to go heavier."
Yeah.
No, not necessarily. Unless you are a heavy player. Again, I have to mention that. Unless you are a heavy player, you have
To
to
go for the
go for
thicker,
thicker
the
strings.
thicker
But if you are a normal player, you don't need to go for a
thicker strings.
thicker
Or
strings.
just a
In
standard
fact,
string.
you could actually go down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true because in fact, a standard player they really need a standard or thinner strings.
Yep.
Because or like they are starting out
Yeah.
because it's easier to play.
And the mistake that most people make is how hard they're going to be strumming the guitar. That's basically where most of the strings end up snapping.
Snapping is how the player
The
player itself.
Player itself, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
Because yeah, that's a bit like how to say the question is a little. It's like no win because if you say thinner string, their mindset will talk about it's easier to snap,
Which
But
is actually
once-
not.
Yeah, but once they change to thicker string, they say guitar is hard to play.
Hard to
because
play,
it's painful.
yes.
So-
And you have much more stress on the strings, and then you still strum it
Strum.
with that same strumming pattern that is going to end up tang, tang, tang on the strings, right? Those strings are not going to last any longer, you know. It's going to actually it's going to snap
also.
even faster.
So even thicker strings it can snap because
It
they
will.
doesn't know what they playing.
Yes,
Yeah.
it will. It will.
Oh,
Ah.
that's why it's a myth, you say. So it doesn't mean
Yes.
thinner will snap easily.
It doesn't mean thinner strings snap faster. That's correct.
Oh, okay. So what about when it's not on playing? While they are tuning the strings, the strings start to snap while they are tuning. So
If you're
what goes wrong?
while you're tuning the guitar and then
it
suddenly it
snap?
goes pang.
Yeah. What goes wrong?
All right. Most of the time, it is how you restring the guitar.
Oh, like the method.
Yes. In your machine head over here, you have to make sure that the strings don't overlap each other. Because the
Okay.
moment they start overlapping, one string becomes a blade for the other.
Oh.
With the amount of pressure that's on that, right, there's enough stress on it to literally
cut over.
kink the string over here, and that would cut the string and so end up
Aha.
snapping that. Or it could also be your bridge or your nut is sharp.
Sharp.
Yes. Some guitars, if they are not that well made, you end up getting a very, some of these parts are sharp. So when you have a sharp bridge, like here, if this is not well made, this part here would actually become sharp.
blade already.
And this would become a blade for your strings.
Oh,
And
okay.
it will snap here. Or it's going to snap, ouch, alright. Or it's going to snap up here. Because the hole here also became sharp.
You mean the overlapping is like how they
Yeah.
coil the strings?
Yes.
So if like two strings stack
Stack
together,
over each other,
that will be a problem.
that'll be a problem.
Oh.
You have to make sure that they go in line with each other as they go down.
Okay.
Don't suddenly one going down, suddenly one going up, then one going down again. Yes, it's going to snap your strings.
Oh, because they are stacking together.
Yeah.
And the guitar is pulling it.
Mm.
So there's something like pressing together,
Yes.
and the force will cut through the strings itself.
Exactly. So
Uh-huh.
it's not the string gauge that makes the string snap easy. It's
the
either the
user.
guitar
Or
or
the
the
user.
player.
Mm.
That's the
Okay.
truth. It can be both.
Or can be both, yeah.
So, yeah.
don't. Also, there's another side way to don't cheap out on guitars.
Yes. Don't cheap
Uh-huh.
out on your guitars. That's
so
very
yeah,
true.
So if you cheap out on guitars,
Mhm.
you'll be changing much more strings.
Yep.
And all the strings add up. It will
Might as well you
become-
pay a bit more for
yeah.
a better guitar, and your strings might last you a whole month. And with proper maintenance on the strings, you can last even longer.
Yeah, if there's some guitarists or newbie, they're trying to change their strings, right? Like they didn't know they overlap each other. So what can they do? You
Very
help them?
simple. Google, check out guitar restringing, and they have a lot of good tutorials on how to restring your guitar, and what to do, what not to do.
What to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Google.
That's as
all
simple
the
as it
way.
goes.
So if I'm lazy to change the string and I don't know what to pick,
Come to us, lor.
come to you.
Come to us,
So-
lor. Yeah. We will do it. Of course, we got charged for restringing, labor charge, and all this, but it comes for a fact because
Yeah.
you need to know what you're doing. It's
Yeah.
not just a matter of put the strings and wind
And
it
just
in.
wind it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also if you don't know what strings to pick with, they can also look for you,
Yes, sure, definitely.
right? And look for him. You get to know what strings to pick.
Yep.
If you know how to restring, so it doesn't need to pay for restring. If you don't know, you can just pay him for the restrings and
Mhm.
can last for quite a while, right? Strings.
Can, yeah, definitely.
It's all based on the guitar or the player itself.
Yes.
It's not the strings.
So, that is a good place for us to actually probably put in a simple conclusion on what strings
Okay.
basically is and how to do it. So,
So
of
yeah,
course-
start of the show. Just 1 second. Here it is.
So obviously, when you're going to come and pick your guitar strings, if you come and ask me and to help you pick out a string, the first question I'm going to ask you is, what guitar are you playing? Because if you're playing, let's say, a short scale like your Fender Jaguars or a Les Paul, yes, you have to go for something probably not too light, not too heavy. You can go probably something like the 946 that we have to a bit of a 10. You could still use that. Or if you want to go for something like a Strat, you have a standard Stratocaster type of a guitar, or you have something like the Telecaster, or even the Jazzmasters, or those type of standard bodied guitars, right? Then you'd want to go for something like a 9 to 42. You could even go for 8s. You could do 10s if you're going to play heavy metal drop D type of playing. And on top of that, if let's say you have something even longer, like Ibanez RG series, or those 7-string guitars, baritone guitars with a full length neck, all right, 27-inch scale length neck, then you want to go for something even lighter. Like maybe you could go for 8s also, possibly, because longer gauge with your decent tension strings, lower gauge, will actually be much nicer for you to play your leads, will give you nice sustained tones, and will also give you a good amount of tension for your long scales. So yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Well, hope that's informative for all of you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, I do learn something that the most important is that I learned that not thinner strings doesn't snap easily.
No.
So it does have a tone change
Yes.
and it does affect the playability.
Yep.
So
Changing your gauge of strings does affect the playability until you set it up.
the
So,
playability, the tone.
Yep.
And there's a lot of type on it.
yes.
So yeah, there's all about the strings. Hope this is very informative for you guys because I didn't know because I thought strings are the same. I think majority of
a lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of people make that.
is
It's a common
it
mistake.
a common mistake?
Yes,
for-
it's a common mistake for most guitarists in order for them to say like, okay, all strings are the same. Why should I worry? I just take one lah.
Okay.
So that is a mistake that a lot of them make. And then after that, they change their strings and then they come and complain. I use this string not nice lah. I play not the string not nice lah. Actually, it's not the string's fault. It's you chose the wrong gauge.
The wrong gauges. It's not the string, not the brand.
It's not the brand. It's the string gauge.
Gauges. And I think gauges comes first. Material comes second.
Yep.
Brand comes third.
Pretty much.
Is it?
Yeah, pretty much on that.
Okay. So if you want to look for the conclusion of it, just rewind like a few minutes back.
Yep.
And I think you just basically go through all the strings just now.
Yes, that's pretty much.
So yeah, I think that's a wrap. Do you think that's a wrap?
Yeah. So
Yeah. So thank you, Ben,
Thank you,
for
thank
coming to the
you.
show. Great to have you here.
Yeah.
Really informative. Last stream is so about the acoustic guitar, which is very informative also. This time we talk
And
about strings also.
while we're on that, I want to thank all the people who commented and your questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Those are really important to us. Thanks for all those who called in and also made our live stream a bit more
Yeah,
fun
of
on this
course.
ones. And I hope that you guys will learn a bit more and this. So
So
that
do you want to do the plug for the page of the live stream of the show? Yeah, it's my show. I'm gonna do it. So yeah, please give a like, share, subscribe, and leave the notifications on so you won't miss out the stream.
Yep,
And
yep,
you can
yep.
see a lot of Mr. Long Hair Rocker Guitarist Ben here and me, your host. So yeah, I think that's a wrap. Thank you for all the information.
thank you. No problem.
And yeah, give it up for Ben. Bye bye.